Hey everybody, it's Ms. Smith. So today what we're going to talk about is unit conversions, or also called dimensional analysis. Now, I wanted to spend a whole day talking about this, but you're not going to have a whole lot of problems, but I do want you to spend some time today really focusing on making sure you understand how to do this. This particular concept we will use a lot in here, and it's what it is you're taking the units and you're figuring out are the units really working, and you can actually check yourself by watching the units to make sure that your calculation is correct. So you're looking at the units, do these units actually match where I need them to go, and things like that. So, but I always tell the story about how in high school physics, I used dimensional analysis by watching my units and figuring out what they should be. And I could forget formulas when I took physics, but still get the question right if I use dimensional analysis. So this skill will help you out. Now, we're going to be using this skill. I'll teach you this now, and this will be the first time that you see this, but we also will hit this real hard again towards the end of the year when we do stoichiometry at the end of the year. And so if I teach you this in the beginning and give you the kind of the basics, when you see it again towards the end of the year, you'll be, that much further ahead and more prepared. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my notebook. And don't mind my calendar, sorry. Okay, and I'm going to go, let me scroll down. I'm on the wrong page. Okay, and so I am going to call this dimensional analysis, or you could say unit conversions. Oh, that is huge. Unit conversions / dimensional analysis. Okay, so I want to give you just a basic formula. So I'm actually going to make a box real quick. And I'm going to write the formula in here for you. And so this is just a basic kind of default formula. I don't know if default's the best word. Just, we use this all the time. And so if you can remember this, then you'll be okay when we start doing more complicated versions. So what you do is you take your info that is given. So most of these are going to be word problems. No, not super long word problems that you get in math classes. They're a little bit shorter. They're not as daunting, but they've gotten words. So what you do is you pull the relevant information out of the questions. That's your information that's given. And then you set up your unit conversion ratio. Now, this is all about units. Okay, so the whole point of doing this is you make sure you understand your units. So you take the units that are given and put those on the bottom, and you put the units that you want on top. Okay, if you can remember how to do this, then you can do almost any problem I give you. If you forget how to do it, if you can just do this and take care of your units, you'll be golden. You'll be just fine. Okay, so let me give you a practice problem. So it says you have a length of rope that measures 3,075 millimeters. Okay, so you have a length of rope . 3,075 millimeters. How long is that in meters? Okay, so we need to pull out relevant information. So I'm going to turn on my highlighter for just a second. And let me pick a better color here. Let's do pink today. Okay, so I'm going to highlight the relevant information. So here's right here, that's the first thing that's important, is that 3,075 millimeters. So that gives me, that's my information that's given. I now need to find out where I'm supposed to go. So what is the question asking for? And so that says, how long is it in meters? So there is my relevant information. Okay, so step one is to write down what's given. And so I'm actually going to write the steps on this next page. Steps for conversions. This also works if we were going to do metric conversions. I could show you how to do that with metric conversions too. But you know, moving the decimal like I taught you how to do yesterday is actually a lot easier. So anyway, but step one, write down what is given. That's always your first step anytime you do one of these problems, because a lot of people, when they see these problems, they get deer in the headlights and like, oh my gosh, this, I don't know, I have no idea how to do this, I'm just going to give up. Okay, if you forget how to do all of this, the first thing that you do every single time, write down what's given. Okay, so let's do that. Let's write down what's given from this question. So I'm going to take 3,075 millimeters. You got to include your unit. Units are super, super important. Okay, that's my information that's given. So let's go back to this generic formula. Let's use this formula. So I wrote down the information that was given. So now I need to write down the units that were given. So the units that my problem was written in. So, oh, that is not an equal sign. Excuse me. That's a multiplication sign. And I'm going to say units that were given were millimeters. Okay, and then I want the units that I want go on the top. Well, I go back to my question. I see what is it looking for. It's looking for meters, and those are my units that I want are meters. So I'm going to put meters on top. Now, all we have to do now is find the numbers that go in here. Now, this is where your conversion factor comes in. Okay, so my conversion factor for this problem is 1 meter is equal to 1,000 millimeters. Now, you will always, always, always be given your conversion factors. Now, if it's a conversion factor that's simple, like there's 60 seconds in a minute, there's 60 minutes in an hour, there's 24 hours in a day, like those you know off the top of your head, okay? So I'm not going to give you those. Those are common knowledge. But like this one, 1 meter is 1,000 millimeters, you may not know that one. So I will always give those to you, so don't worry about that. Now, so 1 meter is 1,000 millimeters. So all you do now is, because I've already set up my units here, how they need to be, all I do now are take the numbers that are attached to each of these units and put them in there. So there's a 1 next to a meter, so I'm going to put a 1 there, and then there's 1,000 next to a millimeter, so I put that there, like just like that. Now, what you do is you have to look at where the numbers are. Now, most of the time when you're looking at your conversion factor, your ratio here, there will be a 1 on either the top side of the fraction or the bottom side of the fraction. Now, 1s are useless, okay? If you multiply something by 1, it's still the same thing that it was. If you divide by 1, it's still the same thing that it was. So it really doesn't do anything. So why waste your time putting it in the calculator? Don't worry about putting these 1s in the calculator. You're wasting time. Don't do that. I don't want to waste your time. Okay, so what you do, here's a shortcut. If you're useful, because here's my useless number, don't use that, don't put that in your calculator. If my useful number, this is a useful number, because it's greater than 1, if it's on the bottom, you divide. You would divide like this. If it's on the top, like if this was flipped and 1,000 was on the top, then you would multiply if it was on the top. But it's on the bottom, so that means that we're going to divide. Okay, so let's go to the calculator. I can find my calculator today. There it is. Okay, so we're going to do 3,075 divided by 1,000. And some of you probably could do that in your head, and that's wonderful, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in your calculator for those of you that are a little iffy on how to put it in your calculator. So I did 3,075 divided by 1,000. That is 3.05. Excuse me, 3.075. Now, whenever you're doing these problems, you have to make sure that you put units. If you're not putting units, you're missing the whole point of this lesson. Okay, the units are what's important here. All right, so here's what I want you to notice, and I'm going to write this in a different color. Let's say that you have a fraction like this. So those of you that are good at fractions, I'm not good at fractions. I'm not one of those people. I hate fractions. But that's the reason why I remember this shortcut, is because it makes my life easier and I don't have to do this crazy stuff with fractions. But those of you that are good at fractions, you probably already realize that this is 3 over 1 is what the answer is. So the answer is 3. But here's the shortcut that I remember from school. If you have the same thing here on the bottom side of a fraction and on the top side of another fraction, technically those cancel, so they're gone. And you just bring over what's left. So that becomes 3. You do the same thing with units. It's exactly the same. I have a unit here that's in millimeters, and I have put millimeters on the bottom here, then that means that they cancel. They're gone. So that means the only unit I have left is meters. And that's what it should be. That's what it is. Okay, this problem's over with. It's done. Okay, so let me go and finish writing these steps. So step 1 was write down what's given. Step 2, set up conversion factor. Okay, that's going to be with this conversion factor like we use. 1 meter is equal to 1,000 millimeters. Number 3, cross out units. Step 4, calculate. Step 5, write answer with unit. Okay, now this step here, step number 3, when you cross out your units, that's actually how you check yourself to see if you are correct. Up here, when I did this problem here, had I not been able to cross out millimeters, had I not been able to cross it out and been left with meters, then I would have known that it was wrong, because then had I not crossed it out, then I would have left with millimeters, and that wasn't what I was looking for in the first place. I know, according to my question, that the answer needs to be in meters. So if I cross out all my units and it doesn't equal the unit that it needs to be, then that means that you probably did something incorrect. Okay, so let's try a couple of other problems. All right, your pencil is 11 centimeters long. How long is that in millimeters? Okay, step 1, write down what's given. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. I got 11 centimeters. That's where I am. This is where I need to be, is in millimeters. So I'm going to start with 11 centimeters. Okay, set up my conversion factor. Step 2. Units that I already have go on the bottom, units that I want go on the top. And now all I've got to do is fill in these numbers here for my conversion factor. Conversion factor is 1,000 millimeters is the same thing as 100 centimeters. So I'm going to put 1,000 here with meters, millimeters, and 100 with centimeters. Now, we're going to go ahead and do step 3, and we're going to cross out our units. So centimeters is technically on the top of a fraction here. So centimeters here and centimeters here, because one's on top, one's on bottom. They technically cancel. Now, a common mistake that's made is that people don't put this 100 in here because they crossed out the units. Okay, no, you still got to use the numbers. Still got to use the numbers. But the way you put this in your calculator is a little bit different, because I don't have a 1 on one of the sides like I did on this one. Like this one has a 1 on the top side. So 1s are useless, so I didn't put that in there. So now this one that I've got doesn't have a 1 on either side. So we can't do that. We actually have to put the whole thing in the calculator. And that's really not hard, but here's how you put it in your calculator. And I'm fixing to show you. I'm fixing to go over to the calculator and I'll show you. So you'll do 11 times 1,000 divided by 100. Okay. Now I know some of you probably already figured out that 1,000 divided by 100 is a much simpler number, and you just multiply and it's fine. But that's not what I'm getting at. The numbers right now, the numbers are really not what's important. What's important are the units. The process of you crossing out units is crucial. If you're going to learn how to do stoichiometry by the end of the semester, end of the year actually, you've got to know how to manipulate units. You know, in the beginning, the last few weeks, past few weeks, I haven't really worried about units. Most of the time I hit units real hard in physics. I hit it a little bit in chemistry, okay? So I haven't really worried about units up until now because I haven't talked about it, but now they are very, very important. Okay, so let's go over to our calculator. So we're going to do 11 times 1,000 over 100. Okay, so in the calculator, 11 times, open parentheses, 1,000 divided by 100, 110. All right, so this equals 110. Now, I've already canceled out my units. I am left with millimeters. According to my problem, that's where I should be, and we are correct. All right, let's do one more. This one's a little tough, okay? This is one where you have more than one conversion factor. So we are turning, if we have 2 weeks, how many seconds is that? Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to connect the dots. So I'm going to do like a little side step here. If I'm in weeks, the next step down from weeks is going to be days. The next step down from days is going to be hours. The next step down from hours is minutes. And the next step down from there is seconds. Okay, so we've got to do connect the dots here. Now these conversion factors we know already. But we're going to start with, write down what's given, 2 weeks. Okay, I've got to get 2 weeks to cancel, so I'm going to put weeks on the bottom. Well, I can't just go straight down to seconds because I don't know how many seconds are in a week. Okay, but I do know how many days are in a week. I do know that. So I can go down to days. So we're doing this first step. Okay, so we're doing this first one right here. So I'm going to do days, and I know that 7 days is 1 week. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out weeks. So that means that we're left with days. All right, next step down from days, according to our connect the dots, is hours. 1 day is 24 hours. Days cancel, I'm left with hours. We're doing good, doing good. So we're going to go from hours to minutes now, according to our connect the dots. 1 hour, 24, no, not 24 minutes. 1 hour is 60 minutes. Okay, so hours cancel. One more time, 1 minute, 60 seconds. All right, now, if you notice, all of my useless ones are all on the bottom. And according to our notes here, if we have a useful number on the top, we multiply. So this time, all of our useful numbers are on the top. So that means we just multiply everything. So just in your calculator, 2 times 7 times 24 times 60 times 60. Now it's going to be a big old number. So 2, hold on, let me get, I know you can't see this. Okay, 2 times 24 times, oh, excuse me, I forgot about days. 2 times 7 times 24 times 60 times 60. Okay, so that is 1.2 million. So 1,209,600. Okay, and we cancel all of our units, weeks, days, hours, minutes. We're left with seconds. And that makes sense because if you think about how many seconds are in a week, it's a lot. And this is a big old number. So that's kind of another way to check yourself is, does my answer fit the unit? Okay, and this makes sense. So that's correct. Okay, if you're needing help, if you are completely lost, that's okay. This concept takes some time. Okay. If you need to go back and watch this video, watch it a couple of times, okay? So ask me questions if you get stuck. I'm more than willing to help. Have a great day.